continuing in the same chapter actually. At that exact moment, I felt the change. It was January 2nd, 1993. I began calling foreign embassies. Do you need an English teacher? An experienced trial lawyer that can coach judo in your country? I don't expect a salary, just an opportunity to work and something to eat and a place to sleep. They all said no. I begged with these questions at the Japanese embassy. He politely said, "So sorry, it is not an age issue, it's a health issue. Why don't you try World Teach at Harvard University? They're looking for people exactly like you," and that's exactly how it started. World Teach said yes. I paid $5,000 upfront money that covered my plane fare over and back, insurance in case I got sick, and some other minor expenses. I passed a series of State Department related application procedures, including a personal interview at Harvard, and I requested to be assigned to any destination anywhere in the world. They sent me a brochure, and as I paged through it unconsciously, the word Namibia jumped right out at me. I had no idea where it was. The page just lit up. I just saw the words English and democracy, and also knew at that very instant they would have no knowledge of judo as a possible Olympic sport for Africa. I made Namibia my first, second, and third choices. Next thing I knew, I was looking at a headline in the Delaware News Journal over a picture of me in a judo gi, leaning on my samurai sword. Off to Africa. Eccentric lawyer to teach judo and English in Namibia. I finally made it. They called me eccentric instead of crazy. Frankly, I was relieved to see the word eccentric instead of crazy. I wound down my legal and personal affairs, cut all community ties, and I was damn determined to make a new start in life. During the World Teach interview, I had asked to be sent to the hardest place with the hardest job, and I was totally psyched for this new adventure. Back in my single days before leaving for Africa, I lived with a very beautiful young lady, Sherry. She was my lovely 23-year-old roommate. My daughter Annie and I were out to dinner one Saturday night, and she was our waitress. Annie introduced me to her as her dad, and she said, "Oh, isn't it nice to have your father to go out to dinner with on a Saturday night?" And Annie never missed a beat. "He's not doing anything next Saturday," she said with a big grin. I went to that same place the following Monday and dropped off a signed copy of my recently published book, American Warriors, that I had promised to give her. And we talked. She needed a home. I had a room. That was it. 5 days later, early Saturday morning, actually it was about 6:30, she called me and asked me to pick her up. I had no idea who was on the other line. I didn't even know who I was talking to. So I drove out to where she was, and when I recognized her, I said, "Great." She threw her bag in the car, and she moved in. We lived on the top floor apartment in the city, and she continually worked as a waitress, and I picked her up from the night shift during weeknights, after my work at the Gander Hill Prison, doing public defender job at bail hearings for recently busted felons. We trained together in judo with Dick Hill in Wilmington. She was awarded a brown belt. We got along extremely well. I loved and admired her. We watched Dances with Wolves together at least a dozen times on late night shows on TV. She dreamed of one day visiting the Native American Indians out west in Colorado, and I dreamed of visiting the Bushmen in Namibia. We had been living together for 2 years and were doing great as a couple, but we both knew our age difference would eventually pull us apart, so we made a plan for our split, and we actually both looked forward to it. She helped me collect index cards of names and addresses of anyone who would answer a letter that they might receive one day from one of my Namibian students. I had no idea how to start an international judo team, but I packed 2 judo gis along with my mess kit, my canteen, and my sleeping bag, just in case. And I look forward to my last day of work in the public defender's office. 1 year to the day after my first phone call to the Foreign Embassy, January 2nd, 1994, our World Teach group assembled at the Newark Airport in New Jersey. A bunch of young, frightened, budding world teachers and one old man congregated at the South African Airlines terminal, all looking apprehensive. They treated me with professional deference, as if I knew what was going on. It made me feel funny, and it made me feel very old. Actually, it irritated the living hell out of me, and I find myself avoiding all the conversations. A mother superior type, who was in charge, rounded us up for preliminary meetings and gave instructions on how to get along with each other. And we started by playing little grammar school social games. It was fun. We had to pick a partner to introduce. I pointed, then picked a guy named Jimmy. He had straight black hair down to his waist and was a handsome Asian American fellow with a ready smile who reminded me of my own son. We high-fived, and then we learned to laugh at each other immediately. Then we entertained the others during our introductions, and it broke the ice with all the younger members. They knew I had a sense of humor. I learned lesson 1 about starting over. Stop acting like an asshole. Lighten up, smile, have absolutely no opinions, and keep my big mouth shut about my past. After much confusion while exchanging money and standing in long lines with baggage from weigh-ins, we boarded the South African airliner as a group of 33 brand new world teachers and lifted off to Africa. I had my trusty tape recorder at the ready in my bag. The reporter who wrote the Off to Africa story convinced me to record a total journal of my total experiences, and many others said, "Tommy, you should write a book someday." At that moment, though, I was in awe. I was headed for a new experience in a new country that I knew absolutely nothing about, and I was ready to start a new life. Jimmy asked me privately, why would a man my age quit practicing law and give up preacher comforts? I was frank. Jimmy, I'm not giving up anything. I'm exhausted from being me, and I'm exhausted just trying to keep up with the creature comforts everyone else wants me to need. I want to live a life of simplicity. I want to live alone and independent. And the only place I can think of where to do it is where things are simple. He gave me a look as if I'd said something profound, shrugged and said, "Okay then, let's do it, dude." And we boarded the plane and took our seats. My African adventure began.